Greetings and welcome to the latest wonderful episode of the Vern and Richard Show. This show is turning into the "What the hell is Richard wondering about" show because Rick
That's
is
a
one
dangerous podcast, that.
bloody hell. Yeah, this episode, this particular episode, is indeed safe for work. We've got Rich is wondering about QA and what that definition is and what that means. What is QE? What's the definition? What does it mean? Testing. Definition. What does it mean? Where do those things intersect? Where do they overlap? How does that impact the conversation about tools? How does it impact the conversation about what we're doing? How do we even know that we're doing it well? What metrics? It's a wide ranging conversation. Get ready for tangents because it's tangent central, but it's good. I think we kept it under an hour. I hope.
Yeah, we did. Yep.
But enjoy. It's a good one, and we are going to have a follow-up conversation because we got to a nice natural jumping off point that flows into the next conversation that we're going to have next week. So enjoy, and please God, let us know what you think about this conversation because we need your help on this one. Okay, enjoy.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Vernon Richard Show.
Yay.
This is episode 28. Woo.
Hey, bloody hell.
Do you know whose number used to be? If you divide 28 by 2, you get Isaac's number, right? Or Isaac's number. Was he number 14 at Newcastle? I don't know.
You idiot.
Right, there's the football out the way. Vernon's had a good transfer market. We finally won a game. All is well in the football world. United are above City. Nothing else matters. Okay, on to today's topic of choice.
Again,
and we skipped a week where Vernon couldn't say hey to me because I was on holiday with Finley. So happy days.
Oh, he got the hay. Don't worry about that. He got the hay.
Okie dokie. Right. We accidentally, in my pitching of today's topics, we've spent the last 10 minutes talking about the topic without recording any of it. So let's see where this ends up, and we'll try and replay it so you lot can actually listen to it and see what happens.
Yep.
So the topic is, what the hell is QA? What is QE? What is testing? And how do they all relate to each other? And is it changing? Is it not? Does it make sense? Help me make sense of it. Because
the issue is, why is this bugging you? Like, why are you thinking about it?
Yeah, it's bugging me because there's currently, without using the buzzword, there's currently a lot of opportunities for new tooling in our industry and in our space. But positioning them and talking about them in a way that makes it clear and obvious is becoming harder for me, because a lot of the AI agentic tooling or agent tooling it's not an automated test in the way that we currently talk about an automated test. So that's bothering me. But then now we've got the opportunities to build tools that assist with aspects of QE or QA, as in tools that monitor JIRA tickets, or like you could now, you could check your website's tone of voice because we can do that type of testing now. But what do you call that tool? I know it's a tool, but if you're going to promote it and market it, is it a quality tool? Well, that sounds weird. So I want to talk a lot about tools, but that's a future episode. But in my logic, in my brain of trying to decipher this, I've ended up going back up to this parent layers, and I've found myself messed up. Like, what is QE? What is QA? What is testing? How do they all relate? And how do we succinctly explain that to people now, to talk about the tooling and how the tooling is now differed? Because I've spoke for years around tooling and automated testing, automated checking, and how you need tools and tool assisted. But now there's more, and it's feel like it's getting a lot harder to explain to people what a different type of tooling's for and how that fits into the wider world of software development, testing, QE, QA, etc. So there's my mini mini story. Welcome to my brain. Um,
So where do you want to start?
what what are these words?
By the
What do
way,
they mean?
I'm getting irritated by fruit flies. So I'm just warning everyone who's following this on YouTube. You might see me just start spraying stuff randomly, and Rich is going to start giggling a lot
That's a
because
metaphor for the inside of my head. That's what's happening in my head. I think about QE and I get attacked by QA fruit flies and testing fruit flies.
there are
Um,
bugs interrupting this podcast. That's incredible. Anyway, um,
but that's
let's
where
do
I'm at, Vern. So
attempt to do that, I guess, because that's one thing we were just talking about. So
yeah,
we were talking about what is quality assurance, what is quality engineering, what is testing, what is the interplay between those things. And if we understand that, then we might be able to get into the whole, well, what do we call using tools in 2025 if we can't use test automation because it's completely overloaded? Um,
pretty much. Yeah.
yeah.
And you can now build test automation that's specifically helping you with your quality, not with your testing. But then some might argue that's just a different type of test. So yeah, which is which? What is what? I don't know.
So what is which one should we start with? Should we start with QA? Like, what is QA to you? Because that's the one that seems to be, I don't know, the
Well,
oldest.
QA to me, when I had that title, right, was what I would define as quality engineering, right? It was I love how scared you are of flies.
Just the sorry, go on. Sorry.
Like historically, I think QA was you was responsible, like manufacturing mindset, right? From idea to creation, you were meant to assure that quality by doing various things along the way, right? But that ended up becoming bastardized to mean testing because the way people were attempting to do QA was mostly by testing at the end, specifically at the end. And we would test it at the end and say, this is good enough quality. But really early on, I felt it was bigger than that. Then we ended up just in the testing space, right? Where we're just testing at the end. You know, we're testing stuff, we're writing tests, automated tests, manual tests, but we're still testing predominantly after the thing's been built. Then we had a shift left, movement, and we started getting involved earlier, free amigos, planning sessions, the whole Scrum Agile, movement. And then because we were more involved than we ever were, or we should have always been, but we weren't. Now we're more involved. We started being able to do QA, but QA was seen as a stupid term and not applicable to software. So we called it QE. But then we started finding better ways or different aspects of QE, such as culture, people, processes, whatever, blah, blah, blah. So then QE became a thing. But in our industry now, all three are used interchangeably. So
Yes.
how do we make sense of it?
So to summarize the very interesting discussion that we had before the start of the
Yeah.
so for me, you've got testing is focused on finding bugs once you've got the product, and you can expand that in Dan Ashby styley, and we'll get onto that later, I guess. But testing, finding bugs. These are the definitions or the concepts as I understand them in my head.
Post
You got
product, though, you
QA,
said.
yeah, you got test. So I'm interacting with the product, looking
Cool.
for problems,
Yep. Yep. Yep.
and then got QA, quality assurance is I am looking at the process as a whole, and I'm trying to prevent bugs from happening. Then you've
Okay.
got quality engineering, which for me is both, and it focuses on the tools, it focuses on the business, it focuses on the people and how all those things are interacting together. So it's not quality engineering is what you get when you focus on both of those things at the same time, or maybe not focus focus on both the things at the same time. When you care about both of those things at the same time, because for certainly when you and I got started in this thing, you'd see a lot of. It felt like there are a lot of conversations about should we do one or the other, And me, it isn't about should we prevent bugs or should we find the bugs. I think the conversation has should have been, and so maybe some people try to have this conversation, is saying when trying to prevent bugs is good, we should do that, and we should also look for bugs too. And looking for bugs is, you know, first class work, and we should also try and prevent them from happening in the first place. But then, because humans, we would fall into these camps and say, well, we should only prevent because that's the smart thing to do. And we should only find because that's the smart thing to do. And both camps would think that they were the responsible ones, or actually you need both. And I think quality engineering is both. I think it's that when you feel that responsibility and that desire and to do to be able to say, oh well, in this situation we should, we should, not even in this situation, as a team, our goal is to get better at finding bugs, and our goal is, and we have another goal to get better at preventing bugs. And it's not really about choosing one or the other.
Okay. So if I'm testing as after the product, right? And I'm
You know?
cool and I'm trendy, right? So I'm testing in production as well, and I'm
Ah,
shifting left, mate. I'm shifting right. I'm congoing. I'm salsaing. Like I'm shifting all over the place, right? Is that QE? At that point, am I doing QE if I'm testing at all these different places?
I'm gonna say no.
Gonna say no.
Yeah,
My
I'm gonna say
dancing
no.
not good enough. Not
I'm
good
gonna
enough.
say
My
not
dancing.
necessarily is what I'm gonna say. You might
Okay.
be, but because the way you describe it, I would say no. And the reason I would say no, if you had no intention of at some point looping in the rest of your team into what you were doing, I would say no. Because you're still the bottleneck. Like you're still effectively saying, I am the great and glorious Bradshaw, which is just a hideous sentence to say, let alone hear. Um,
True though.
I am the great and glorious Bradshaw. All the testing go through me. It must all go through me. I'm going to do all the, I am going to be the living embodiment of the Ashby infinity loop. And I'm going to be those
It's my
green
loop
arrows. I will
anyway.
be
It's
all
my
of them.
loop.
I'll test here. I test here and I test here and I test here. Whereas what the diagram says, and I'm might be reaching a bit here. It says we can test here and we can test here and we can test here. And for the context of this conversation,
It
I
does,
would
yeah.
say we is the team.
Okay.
So
So
that's what I would say. You could argue that you're doing quality engineering, but I would say it's quite a brittle version of quality engineering because it's still dependent on you
okay.
alone.
So we're all testing. So I'm dancing. I'm doing my little shift testing over here. I'm shifting left, and I'm doing that dance where where we tap the next person on the shoulder, and they're doing their dance, right? And now we're all dancing, right? We're all testing.
Don't know
Is
what
that
that.
quality engineering?
I don't know what that metaphor means anymore. I'm completely
I
lost.
don't know either.
Uh,
It's stuck in my head. But like,
I don't
basically,
know.
we're all that testing's being done now, right? But by different people. Is that now
Okay.
quality engineering?
If we're talking about testing, if we're being very specific and
I'm
we're
trying to
saying
be.
test is interacting with the product looking for problems,
Or is that
that
what
sort of,
software testing is? Or is that what
yeah.
testing is? Ooh,
Oh
add
mate,
that to the
God,
list.
oh God, see what I've got to deal with here, people. If we're saying testing is interacting with the product, looking for problems, it's possible to do that without considering. It would be easier if I didn't have to do and try and prevent some things or get better at some things that ordinarily, like you could say, are not specifically interacting with the product. They lev they you can amplify the leverage of that interacting with the product by doing some other stuff that isn't interacting with the product on the face of it,
Yeah.
but you would still care about it. It's like saying, if I'm cleaning my kitchen utensils, am I cooking? No. But you should probably care about that if you're going to do some cooking.
Yeah.
I mean, it's that. It feels kind of like that.
So, actually, my flippant comment about is that software testing has actually helped me make some of the distinctions, right? Because, well, because it's true, right? We can call it testing, and I think you're right. In our industry, testing means interacting with the product, right? But then we have these, I use them flippantly, right? But we have testing in production.
Yeah.
Still interacting with the product, but very specifically now production. And then we
Mm,
have shift left testing, which has predominantly meant testing requirements early on, reviewing like requirement documents, stories, having free amigos, having more conversations.
mm.
Like that's my interpretation of shift left testing anyway. Um, but again, we see we've given that a specific term. Whereas, guess what I'm struggling at the start of this pod is I don't think I have enough specific terms within the term of QE to be able to make those distinctions to then I have like buckets like we mentioned earlier, right? There's culture, there's processes, there's people, there's training, there's quality gates. Like, do I already have the right terms? Is that the right terms? Again, to almost like we've got flavors of testing. Do we have flavors of QE, or is QE a culture? Like,
Problem is it causing you not being able to make those distinctions within QE.
I don't think it is. So one of the challenges I feel that I have, right, is everything is testing to a lot of people, right? It's all
Yeah.
testing, whether you're shifting left and shifting right or whatever you're doing, right? Their
Yeah.
implementation of QE is to spread lots of different testing everywhere, right? Whereas my implementation of QE is more than that. It's not just test. Yes, you can test the story, you can test the requirement, right? But you could also train Jack to write better stories in the first place, which is what you mentioned about prevention.
Mhm.
So, like you said, it's a morph of the will, but I don't feel we have enough stuff. But I'm going to let you go because you're tapping away and you got.
No, no. It was just. You reminded me of a conversation that I had with Jit. Shout out to Jit. Don't even know if he's going to hear this, but we started out as QA. My
Yeah,
very first job in software. No, that's not true. My first testing job I was actually a QA. The team that I'm leading now is referred to the QA team, and there was in the first when I first realized that there was a testing community, there was a lot of debate about whether we should be called QA or testers, like tons
absolutely.
upon.
Yeah,
And now quality engineering has become a thing. But as Jit, pointed out in our conversation, it's like it's certainly the case that a lot of people have mapped. They've just, to your point, they've thrown QE in the testing bucket. They've gone, what's in this bucket? Oh, that's testing. You could just go in there, and I'll just have the same expectations. And this is something that you and I have talked about.
yeah,
People we're talking very selfishly and myopically about you and I right now. So we have a perspective on QE, which is which means you're not doing like you're not a tester. It's more than being a tester or different
yeah,
than being a tester. Some differentiation there. Um, but it's getting lumped in with everything else for sure as a job role. And that's what I wanted to say. I think you were right about that bucket thing. I think things are getting lumped. There are tons of things in this bucket called testing.
yeah,
Tons. There's quality assurance. There's quality engineering. There's test automation. There's tons of things in there. But what I want to figure out is, because our understanding of this is much more refined, we are artisan testers, if you will, artisan quality engineers. What do you want to be able to do that you can't do right now? You know what I mean? That's what I that because that might get us unstuck.
I want to make a T-shirt with a loaf of sourdough on it called Artisan Tester. It's what I want to do.
Make some merch, bro. I want to rock merch. Shout out to
um,
Stu and the Quality Talks crew with the bad boy merch.
so again, I I'm finding it hard to unravel stuff and make sense of it, which is what we do this pod for, right? But as you
All
were
up,
talking a minute ago,
strap in.
another another term to add into the mix is just the word quality on its own,
Oh
right?
my god.
Oh
What are you doing?
yeah, but wait, but the reason why is, and we the testing peers, we had a great. There's been a little thread on there about this topic, and you mentioned it before we started recording, right? We seem to be in this efficiency era, right?
Mm-hmm.
Companies aren't about rapid, massive growth at the moment. It's about being efficient, doing more with less.
Mm-hmm.
Now, when it comes to testing, as we described it in this pod, finding bugs or finding problems, there's a metric we have for that, right? Like number of defects, right? I'm not saying it's a good one, right? I'm not saying it's a good one, but it's very measurable. Like there's other options out there, but it's very measurable. When it comes to QE, there's a lot
Right.
of metrics that I've seen around, right? But there's metrics. But then if you go to QA or quality,
Mm-hmm.
then there's even more things you can throw into the mix. But one of the other avenues I've been discussing with the tool angle is a lot of people want to be bringing AI right now, right, into their tool, into
Oh
their
my
ways
God.
of working. But
Every CEO,
how
every
do you
company.
measure the success of an AI implementation if you don't have metrics around quality,
Mm.
which most teams don't, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, but then is that a conversation about quality? Is it a conversation around quality assurance? Because they want assurance, or they don't want assurance. I don't know what they want, but they want to know that it's not degraded, right? They
Who's
want to
who?
know. Well, if it was me, if I was the C-level
Okay.
person bringing in AI, I want to know it's working, right?
Executives,
So
boards.
we've had this conversation for test automation, right? You know,
Okay.
the bell curve of, manual going down and whatever going up, right? And whatever, we know it doesn't work, right? But it's what people do. So now you've got this efficiency driver. There's metrics obviously out there for, software development like Dora and stuff, right? But what are they for, like, again, how do you separate out QA, QE, quality, and testing to come up with these metrics to know that AI is supporting you in what you're doing? Or how do you separate the work into enough separate buckets to identify where you could build a tool or do a tool? And it's that, like I said, it's that distinction or that separation that I think I do have a good grasp on, but I'm finding it hard to explain. But how do you,
The
yeah,
distinction between what? Sorry, the quality.
all the terms that we've just said, QA, QE, testing, quality,
When you
enough
start talking,
to
oh, go on.
go
Sorry,
on.
sorry, sorry.
I, I don't mean like enough to map it out and draw it, like, because we said this before, right? Hopefully don't go off too much of a tangent, right? But if you're doing QE really well,
Yeah,
are you by proxy then doing QA?
I think yes.
But
I
if
think
you're doing, can you do QA without doing QE?
yes. I think you can.
Can you do either of them without testing?
QE, no. QA, yes. That's what I think.
Explain.
Because okay, so QA is about this is the world according to Vernon. QA is about preventing bugs.
You can
Prevent,
prevent them, yeah, without. So you can prevent, you think, without doing any QE, just
yeah,
because that's what you. Okay, right. Okay,
yeah,
right.
yeah. That is possible. I think that's possible.
Yeah, yeah.
And
No,
then you've
I
got
I can see that. Yeah.
testing is about finding bugs.
Yep.
So preventing bugs, QA, finding bugs, testing. Quality engineering is giving your team the skills and helping them foster that mindset and culture that they want to and will do both of those things instead of having to choose. So, what's the there's a half formed. So if you think about fire safety, what would be preventing a fire? Preventing a fire might be,
Teaching
you know,
people not
you
to.
might have fire resistant furniture in your house. But you wouldn't then say, well, I'm not going to have a smoke alarm in the house because there won't be a fire, right? There's no need. I've got a fire retardant furniture. I'm good. I think most of us would not be comfortable with that. And in software, I think that's what the difference. You're kind of saying, well, yeah, even though we've taken all these sensible steps to prevent bugs and problems from happening, we still want to give ourselves, we still want to have that mentality and that skill and the practices, whatever they look like, to find problems when they occur. That is like, it's not either or. But the thing is, finding problems traditionally has been the role of a tester. And so what we've been trying to do for a long time is foster that same spirit of, we should all care about problems in this product, preventing and finding. How do we do that? Which ones do we go after? How do we do that from a um, people system point of view, culture? How do we do that from a technical skill? How do we leverage all of those and squish those things together? And I think something I said to you was, ha- what happens when Rich decides to go on holiday because he needs to give Vern a break, because Vern deserves a break from Rich, so he's going on holiday. Does your team keep doing all those good things around prevention and finding, even when you're not there? And I think that's quality engineering. Like, the longer you can leave, and this is, see, now I'm going on my bloody glue work, technical leadership tangent. I'm going there, people. I'm sorry to repeat myself. But it is, if you, again, this entrepreneurship thing, the way that you measure, or a way to look at how successful you are as a business owner, is to say, how long can I go on holiday without this business just grinding to a halt? And you've cracked it when you are not needed anymore, when your presence is actually a hindrance. Now, this is a
Mm,
business. That's from a business point of view, because you've set
yeah.
things up to run so well. When you show up and go, "Hey, what about this?" People are like, "Yo, Van, chill out. Like, just you're interrupting. It's in hand. Could you just go away?" Actually, and maybe that's that. Maybe that's another kind of heuristic to use with us and quality engineering and testing. Can I go on holiday and I don't spend the last, you know, few days of the holiday thinking, oh my God, when I get back, there's going to be all this testing left to happen, to occur, and I'm going to have to play catch up and work late and all the rest of it. And I'll need another holiday within a week of getting back from my actual holiday.
Okay.
That feels like it's part of the mix.
Yeah, yeah. And I think that's the word mix. Like, I think that's also the challenge here
That's
in
the
that I don't want another term. I don't want
yeah.
to make another term, right? Because we've just joked. The other term that people like to use is just quality, right? Underneath, if you drew this out, quality, then
Yeah.
you've got QA, right? Because if someone's mentioning the word quality, there's a level that's they're expecting, right? They might not, again, then it's a job of getting it out of their head, right? So if someone says that's poor quality or that we need
Mhm,
more quality, that's an immediate starting point of, well, what is that?
mhm,
And how do we measure it? And then how do we assure? I don't like the word assure, right? But we're not assuring, but we're trying to aim that we don't go down, right? Or we don't go too far down. We don't degrade too much. But then we go,
mhm,
well, how do we, or perhaps let's say assume it needs increasing, right? Or maintaining. Then we go into, well, how can we make it better? We could improve testing, which is how it currently done, or we go down the route of quality engineering. But I almost feel that on the teams I've been on, I would say that we're doing all four of these quote terms, right? And it's just it don't matter. Does it matter what you call it? But we're doing them all. But the reason why it matters to me now is I'm finding it just, as I said, difficult to explain where the initiative sits in this mix of these four words, to make it clear that there is distinct paths. Like you said, there is glue work, there is quality coaching, there's the training side of it, there's the business side, there's the getting the
So,
quality metrics, there's the testing, there's a whole, we all know how big the testing side of this is. There's a lot of verticals, but I can't, for some reason, I
mhm.
just can't. I'm doing this with my hand. I can't. Okay, if you can't see, if you're just listening, I'm drawing columns. That it's not a column. It's not a column. You know what I mean? It's not columns. But how do you
Yeah,
like
it's
model
not.
it? We've
It's
got
not.
great models for testing. I've seen some good ones for QE, but like together, it gets messy and big. So
Right. I know you said not on new terms, but maybe it's post testing. Do you know what I mean? It's post quality. You know, maybe it's because you know, I've said a few times in the past that there are four levels to your growth in this career. You know, first you start by I'm interacting with the product that's in front of me and I'm looking for bugs. And then the next thing is, you know, this would be easy if I had some tools to do some of this stuff for me or to amplify me in some way. So I'm going to go and figure out that. So you go and learn some tools. And then you start saying to yourself, do you know, this would be bloody easier if um, I didn't have to look for all of these bugs anyway. So now I'm going to try and, you know, go and help over here and help over there and help, you know, oh, let's go and help with these stories. Let's go and help with it and take and look for bugs in those. And then you start saying to yourself, do you know what? This whole system of work is a target rich environment for improvement. There's so many things we could get we could improve upon to increase the quality. And maybe that's what it is. So I think the first thing for me, the foundational skill for me is testing. That is at the heart of everything. Finding bugs in the bloody product is the core.
Hmm.
Because it's difficult to think at the system level. I think to go straight to the system level, that feels, and I could be wrong, you know, maybe there's, you know,
It, is
Dr.
that
Dave
because you
me,
is that
but I don't.
because you feel bugs are probably one of the biggest contributors to an assessment of quality?
I don't know. I think it's more, it's easier to expect individuals to look at the product itself and say, I can reason about the product because it's less complex in nature compared to the product plus the system that
Hmm.
surrounds it that creates it.
Yeah,
That system that creates the thing is more complex than the thing
yeah, yeah.
because that's the way it has to be. Otherwise, nothing would make sense. So, um, if you start there and then that gives you that lens and it gives you that vocabulary or ability to start describing and saying, oh, well, you know, we want to know, you know, we're a business. We solve this problem for these people in this way. I understand that. So our product is trying to help these people in this way. So now I've got some frame and a scope in which to do my testing. I say, right, I can look at this product from this perspective and I can look at it from this other perspective. Look at it.
Yeah.
Awesome. And then you start to think of ways you can do that more easily, probably with some tools. So you start to learn about tools. You go, oh well, I could do this faster if I was able to do this. I could do this more easily if I was able to do this. I'm unable to do this other kind of testing, like performance testing, without using tools, actually, because that's easier than getting actual millions of humans to do the thing. So I'm just going to simulate that with tools. Amazing. And you kind of go from there. Yeah, and then and at some point you kind of start to say, do you know what? Some of these bugs and issues, we just need to prevent it. We shouldn't even be looking for these problems, really. Like, we can just prevent them from happening. What do we need to do to just stop them from bloody happening? And if they do happen, what's the cheapest, easiest, fastest, most, you know, just efficient way to find that category of problem? Let's just get them squared away. Let's just get them out of here. Get them out of here. What's left? That's the stuff that we still need to think about deeply.
Because well, that all makes sense to me, and like I think, like you said earlier, we've almost gone full circle in that a lot of us started as QA and tried to be QA and failed to be QA because we got pushed to the end, right? We got
Mhm,
pushed into the testing column and we got stuck in the testing column. And
mhm.
only a few of us were able to break out of it and start showing that there was more to it, right? Before it had a term. So before it had a term,
Yeah.
go on, mate.
Well,
Go on.
well, the other thing is because geez, another tangent. So I'm building a thing called the credibility frame playbook, and I was just talking about this. Talking, I'm recording video. I was just talking about this in one of the videos because people stay there because they're rewarded for staying there.
Mm.
That's the other thing. Is that we were rewarded for finding bugs. Staying in the testing column was a good thing, and still might be a good thing, depending on the context. So yeah, I just say that because I think I've definitely been guilty of kind of framing that as you're a mug for doing that. And actually, sometimes the system rewards you for doing that. You're not encouraged to do it. It's discouraged, isn't it?
If
I
you're
mean,
in
I
a system again, that was it's not a tangent because it's kind of tying up to where my head's going, right? If you're in a space where not rewarded, right, but your measure of quality, back to one of the words, right? Your measure of quality is no P1s, no P2s.
Mhm.
Like you're motivated to try and find as many P1s and P2s as you can, and also then as many P3s to say that because we've found 50 P3s, there's probably isn't any more P1s or P2s, right? Because I've played that game before, which is, because you've found so many lower priorities, the chances of there being any higher ones left is deemed less, right? But that's because in those environments, as you said, you're rewarded. I know it's not true, but it's a game I've had
Yeah,
to play.
yeah, yeah,
Um,
yeah, yeah, yeah.
but like you said, because you're rewarded, or you're in a context where the rest of the cycle development process is poor, there's always going to be bugs. So you're always stuck in that loop. You can't get out of it. There's no initiative to get out of it because it's almost you're showing your worth, right? And companies aren't shifting, right? But back to that. So we started off in that QA world, right? A lot of us realized we could have a bigger influence further on. And I'm not going to go into the prevention tangent. I'm not a big fan of the word, right? But we started realizing we could have an impact earlier on and influence quality or stop some of the low hanging fruit that was coming to us later down the line and taking longer and costing money. Um, so we ended up doing some of that, but then it kind of testing took over because then automation came in, right? And it became this massive thing, and kind of the word QA almost disappeared to some extent because everyone wanted testers and SDETs and test automations and everything else. And then QA came back a little bit, but it didn't have the same wow factor, right? Because I don't know why, but it didn't. Um, but what I'm feeling now, is just to wrap up my tangent or try to, is a lot of companies, or maybe I'm wrong, but it feels this ones I've been in, right? We we nail down testing like really well. So then we can move into the QE space, right? So then we push into the QE space and we start doing that really well. And I think now, like you said, by nature, I know you said QE is both prevention and there's the other side of it. I almost feel like it's actually the other way around. Like maybe QA is QE plus testing. Um, or as in by its nature of doing QE well and testing well. And if you do it, when I say well, but as in metrics is a big part of this. I've mentioned that a lot, right? But I know it's not, I know like the term assuring quality. But if you have those metrics in place and you're maintaining them and trying to improve them, you're assuring quality because the people on the team agree that these numbers are good and things are healthy and this is how we like it to be. So if you're doing all this QE work and testing work to keep those numbers in the right place and or improve them, by proxy you're almost assuring quality. And I know it's not a term we like. I don't even like saying it. It makes me feel like right? Because it's I don't know why. It's been bashed out of me by the community, I guess. But
I'm less
I don't know
by it
if it's
these
because
days.
I'm nearly. I don't know if it's because I'm like nearly past it now because I'm like 40 next year. But like, is it just suddenly deciding to? Couldn't help myself. Is it because of is it just because I'm starting to realize that a lot of these words don't matter, right? But that contradicts my starting point of this pod, right? They matter because to influence everyone else. Like now I'm in my older age, right, and like past it. It's um, like it's almost like I don't care as much,
It's just fun.
but
Shout.
it's almost like I don't care as
Mhm.
much, but I do care enough to train the next generation. And I'm finding it again, like I said, hard to talk about these separately in a way that you describe is going to help someone with their career path It's going to help identify tool opportunities. It's going to help convince stubborn developers who don't want to improve. It's going to help those top end developers who are very much doing lots of quality work know where to do next, what to go next. I I just feel that it's all blurred, and it might be fine that it's blurred, and we perhaps should just call it quality, or we should just do something else, right? Just call it Jeff, right? But it it's there's got to be a way that they're all together, and I'm feeling like the more we've been speaking here, that there is a mix, but there does seem to be a maturity path or a like
That's what I was.
a, a hierarchy of it that
There's
leads
an
to you
evolution.
could argue. Yeah, it leads to a place where you could say, you know what, we're doing all four of these things. We're doing
Yeah,
QA, we've got quality, we're doing QE, and we're doing testing. But if you happen to not do QE and you're doing testing, QA becomes really bloody hard and almost virtually impossible. Um, Whereas if you're just doing QE without testing, which there's probably no one does that, right? But there is ways you could do it. Again, you will probably struggle to assure certain aspects of quality. So, like, there needs to be this web, this weaving of something.
see, I don't know, man. Because the way I think about it is the name of the concept isn't as important as being able to articulate the concept itself. So if you can get clear on, prevention work, and you can get clear on finding work, and you can get clear on culture work and technical, what all these different flavors of work are, if you can get clear on those, then the thing to figure out is, hey, human that I'm currently working with at this particular client, what when I describe, what do you call this concept here? And
Oh
you
yeah,
start
yeah,
going on about prevention work, and they'll go, we call that Jeff. You go, okay, Jeff work, got it. And so you
yeah,
just you kind of, so I would call it QA. So I would say I would now stop calling it QA whenever I was working with those people, and I would
yeah,
call it Jeff. Do you know what I mean?
yeah. I know exactly what you mean, and we've
I think that
preached, pre-
so long, yeah, so long as you can get clear on
yeah, yeah.
what that jumble of things is and where they start to blur and when are they distinct from each other, that might help. But I don't know. There's no way we're figuring this out in one episode. I mean, we've been
No,
going
no.
to
You know what? Again, I picked this topic because
good talk.
I've deliberately, I'm discussing this, and I'm also trying to discuss it like without not saying I don't have an opinion. I'm trying to discuss it in a way that elaborates on it, so other people, hopefully, it's helping you form stuff because
No, and give
it
me
is
opinion.
unclear. No, I mean it is unclear to me, but I almost feel like again, I think the terms have just been selected in some cases just to go against existing other terms, right? But I do think there
Yeah,
is three distinct layers, like we've said. There is this measurement layer, like quality measurement, like some metric has to exist somewhere.
yeah,
Because how do you know if you're doing good or bad, right? It's got to be something. Then underneath that, you've got your things that you're doing to basically achieve those numbers, right? Which I think is quality engineering. And I almost feel testing is just a subset of that. It's just one of the blocks you can do to help you with your quality engineering. Um,
mhm,
Engineering, obviously in the terms of like building the software, but there's other blocks you could do, right? There's quality gates, there's training, there's glue work, there's technical leadership, there's shifting left and right and everywhere. Like there's all these other blocks that you can stick in, but I feel that nowadays they've got to come underneath this quality engineering team because again, back to the last episode, which there's a shift that's going to happen where this. I don't know what the shift will be, right? But my gut's telling me at the moment it's the generalist specialist shift, right? So there is going to be this shift where, and there already is a shift where more people have to do quality work, right? As in quality related tasks, not just their bucket that they're already assigned to. That's already happening, right? But I feel like it's got to happen 10, 20, 15 times fold more. And when that happens, you need people like you said earlier who can cope when Richard's not here. or when Vernon's on holiday, or when, there's a player on the team refusing to go to work because he wants to join another team, right? There's stuff like that that you've got to be able to cope when those changes come around.
We've just lost all our listeners in Newcastle. Well done.
But yeah, you know what I mean. I think naturally we're already on this journey to the point where everyone should be aiming for QE, and then by doing that, you get a lot more than just testing, which means there's a lot more tooling, there's a lot more opportunities, and then if you do
So,
QE really well, by proxy, you're doing QA. Is how I feel. You asked me my opinion, that's how it feels.
so I might be repeating myself. I don't know, but I wonder if shooting for QA is the same as saying it would make more sense to say I'm going to do couch to 5K than saying I'm going to run a marathon and I have no plan of how to acquire that skill. I almost feel like becoming well-rounded enough and generalist enough and sophisticated enough in a bunch of different disciplines
Yeah,
in order to make all of that work is massive to the point of being like overwhelming and daunting and kind of I don't even know where to start. So if and it's something I was listening to I'm doing some oh god the tangents. I'm doing some training with this guy called Ali Abdaal. Like I'm doing this challenge. I need to make $1,000 in the next 2 weeks now. So yeah, I'm going to be posting about that on LinkedIn. So please give me your money when you see it. Anyway, what he talked about was he talked about the process of business, and he said you can break it down to its fundamentals, which is you need, well, certainly online businesses. Let me specify that. He said it's conversions, no, it's traffic and it's conversions equals revenue. And so if there is a problem, it's either in the traffic side of things or it's in the conversion side of things. So traffic is how many people see my offer, and conversion is how many people who saw the offer bought the thing. And so if you have a conversion that is too low, that's a problem and you address it. And if it's too high, that's a problem and you address it. And the same with traffic. So, oh, well, if the conversion's okay, let's look at the traffic. How can we solve the traffic problem? And then there's a bunch of ways you can do that.
yeah,
And it got me thinking, is there a way that we can do the same with software development? Because obviously those things explode out into different sub genres of skill and topics and levers to pull. Definitely that's the case with software development. But is there a way to kind of say from a high level, building a product has these fundamentals? Like it doesn't matter what it is, there are these fundamentals. What are they? And quality engineering is that ability to drill down into those things and being able to fix them,
yeah, and being
or
able
at
to,
least marshal the troops to get them fixed.
yeah, or even to have those thoughts in the first place, right? Of that, you know, measuring those things in the first place
Yeah.
to then act upon the trigger. Again, your weight loss analogy was the one that was stuck in my head because, or the fitness one. Like, so, again, I want to lose 10 kgs, right? So there's the quality metric already.
Mhm.
You've already defined it, and then you could lose 10K. You could say, I'm just going to run, right? So let's say you just run, and your running makes you burn 50 calories less a day. Therefore, in 5 years, you'll lose 10 kilos, right? Or you take a more holistic approach to it and you look at your diet. You alter your foods, you cut out some foods, you alter what you're cooking. You
Yeah.
buy some shoes that enable you to run 6K in the same time because you've got better equipment. I don't know, you do, you know what I mean? You change more than just saying I'm going to do running or I'm going to do testing, right? You're looking at the bigger holistic approach, like you said, of prevention, um, the in wider space. I agree. I have no issue. I think QE and testing feel very comfortable with me and how I would define them and explain them. But I just think now that
Hmm.
I've seen a lot of
Yes.
QE initiatives without the metrics, and I think that's the missing piece to jump into back into the QA space. people doing QE and just jumping around going, hey, we could do some stuff here, we can do stuff here, we can test here, yeah, we can coach you here, we can give you a voice here, but there's no metric to it. There's not a metric, but there's no measurement of improvement. It's
So
just
let's
you're
talk.
doing QE work, but you don't know if you're doing it good. And I feel that's where QA comes back into the mix, if that
Let's
makes
talk
sense.
about that in the next.
Okay.
That is front and center in my mind is metrics, and we can talk about what that even means. Because whenever you bring up metrics, my first thought is,
Yeah.
why?
Yeah, yeah. The
So
story.
the metric doesn't exist in a vacuum.
Exactly.
So even something that on the face of it is pretty clear. It's like I want to lose 10K. It's like, well, why?
Yeah, yeah.
Where did that desire come from? What are you trying to? What happens if you lose 10K? I want to know that, because if I know that, there's a possibility that there's something we can do that doesn't involve you losing 10K.
Yeah, yeah. That's exactly like good conclusion because that
But
is exactly what I'm thinking. Yeah.
but it does. But once we have figured out what that thing is, we absolutely then need a metric to kind of say we have achieved the thing or not,
Yeah.
and we are not good at that right now. And I've had the gauntlet thrown at me pretty hard by my line managers. To
And,
think,
but I think that metric story in that episode will be brilliant because testing, as we said, and I said it earlier on in this episode, testing metric for testing is it's almost like ingrained in people. I'm not saying these are good ones, but
yeah,
there's always
I
been
got yeah,
some.
yeah.
There's always been some, but there not isn't always necessarily. I've been on teams where there isn't some for QE. We say we're doing QE, and we are doing these things that we've just been describing here. We've got all the tactics on the go, but the measurement is still almost the same ones that were in the testing bucket, not
I
new
yeah.
ones. And when you bring those new ones in, I almost feel that you're naturally entering the traditional quote QA space again now because there's a defined, there's more metrics to work towards and to assure against and to
That,
improve against. But anyway, it
that
sounds
conversation, we,
promising.
we should totally have that conversation next week, because
Well,
I think that's interesting.
we'll take this bit of this recording out, stick it at the start of that one, and then we'll carry on after that. So in last week's
In
episode, we
the
said this.
episode,
Awesome. All right. Anything to plug, Vernon, that you've not plugged already?
yes, I'm working on something called a credibility playbook. It's going to cost you $10, and it should be finished this week. Please buy all the copies. It's going to be part text, part video, because I'm experimenting with building things so I can make money, because I'm extremely broke and I need to make many thousands of dollars.
Well, if 100 people buy it, that you'll achieve your goal of
Well,
the $1,000 challenge, right?
here's my goal. I've got my $10 offer nearly finished. The next thing will be I need to sell as many of those as possible. Amazing. The next thing will be I'm going to come up with a coaching offer of some kind, and I will share what that is, God willing, on next week's pod, or maybe the one after that. But yeah, that's
Cool.
where I'm at right now. So keep an eye out for the $10 offer. Please buy it. And if you do buy it, please consume it. And if you do consume it, please give me feedback.
Sweet. Right then. On that case, it's goodbye from me.
It's goodbye from me.
See you on the next one.